We are a nation that is absolutely entrenched and occupied by radical Islam. We've told you now all of these years about the unholy alliance between communism and between radical Islam. Well, they have a saying that the enemy of my enemy is my friend. The enemy of communism, the enemy of Islam is Christianity and the Jews. And you're going to take a look here. We're going to take a close look at how entrenched they are. They are here. And you need to be ready to stand, and be prepared to stand against this. So with that, Dan, Hromada.
Hello everyone. I'm going to show a video here in a couple of seconds, or a couple of minutes, that's exposing this problem. It's called Jihad in America, the Grand Deception. My name is Dan Hromada. I'm the chapter leader of Cleveland, Ohio, Act for America. Act for America is the nation's largest grassroots national security movement. Our purpose and mission is to combat radicalism and educate the public about Sharia law and the threat of Sharia law. We have 875 chapters around the world, most of them are in the U.S., and 289,000 members worldwide. If you get their emails, you're technically a member. Okay, so at the very least, after you see what I have to show you today, I'm going to encourage you, please sign up, get their emails, get this information on your radar screen. This is Brigitte Gabriel. You might have seen her on Fox News. She has been trying to warn our country for the last probably 10 years, but through her organization, Act for America, which started in 2007, about the threats of radical Islam and how it's not just over there, like the plain dealer might have you believe, it's over here, it's in our country as well. I had the opportunity to meet Colonel Al West, who's a former congressman who works with our organization. You might have seen him. He's a great American, and he's a man who truly understands the threat. He's been on the battlefield, and in my opinion, should be our commander-in-chief. Okay. This war on terror that we're facing is much more than just Al-Qaeda. That's the kinetic threat. And that's what we're very good at, identifying. They can't beat us on the battlefield. But we are at war with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, and if we don't consider ourselves at war, they consider themselves at war with us. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation, is also known as the OIC, it's 56 Muslim countries and the Palestinian territories. They're the largest voting bloc in the United Nations. There are groups here called the Muslim Brotherhood. They're actually global. They're in 68 countries. They started in 1928, and they're active here in the United States. And of course, one of our biggest threats is political correctness. And I'll show it. I'll demonstrate what I actually do.
Dr. Shannon.
Yeah,
he mentioned what can happen if you went back to Missionary. That's what I've been doing. I can reach him here easier.
In 2011, revolution swept the Middle East, but this seemingly faraway turmoil has cast a long shadow, because the very same political party whose member assumed power in June 2012 in Egypt has also been setting up front groups 5,000 miles away. For decades now, the Ikhwan, or the Muslim Brotherhood, have operated secretly behind the scenes in America. Their influence reaches from the halls of academia, to Hollywood and the media, even to law enforcement, and to the highest levels of political power.
Their dream is the creation of an Islamic state. Their utopia is having the law be Sharia. So their strategy in America, I believe, is to use America's freedoms and liberties in order to achieve that dream.
If they want to place their religion on the table and say, this is what we stand for, then they're welcome in the political arena. Let them debate the caliphate in the American political system.
لكن الاتسكيزم يعرف أن الإسلامي يؤمن بأن الكذب في المصالح جائز.
Now that the United States government has acknowledged formally resuming contact with Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood, How much do we really know about this shadowy organization's activities here in the U.S.?
Now, in my mind, the Muslim Brotherhood is the mother of all Islamic organizations of the 20th century, including Al-Qaeda.
For years, the U.S. government had been dealing with Muslim Brotherhood front groups and leaders, though unaware of the secret roles they played in the Brotherhood infrastructure in the U.S.
The West as we see today, instead of isolating the Muslim Brotherhood, actually engaging the Muslim Brotherhood as the organization that's moderate, and these are the Muslims we can talk to. The West is tremendously naive about the danger of these various Islamic organizations.
How do you define the good guys, if the good guy definition is they will not be engaged in terrorist activities, well, yeah, okay, they're the good guys. But in terms of the democratic social order that we have here and what's mainstream, well, they may not be the good guys.
These are the words of other leaders of American Muslim organizations that have roots in the Muslim Brotherhood.
I find that there are only two things which are open to our movements: ballot or bullet, nothing in between.
Our job is to change the Constitution of America. Ultimately, the Muslim Brotherhood wants to establish an Islamic state in America. They believe that Western civilization is corrupt, is evil, is decadent, and they want to dismantle it.
If you talk to normal people who are not involved in this stuff at all, and talk about the establishment of a caliphate as being someone's long-term goal, you lose them immediately. It's so far outside the realm of what we consider to be possible or normal that it's sort of immediately dismissed as being crazy talk. I don't think it matters much what we say about them. I think it matters tremendously what they say about themselves and to each other.
This religion, that is Islam, it shall govern the whole universe. The Islamic civilization should rule and govern and direct people in every walk of life, but not to be governed by others.
Kamal Helbawi is the only spokesperson for the Muslim Brotherhood who agreed to be interviewed for this documentary. Upon his return to Egypt in 2011, Helbawi eulogized Osama bin Laden as a martyr and one of the good people.
Anything mentioned in the Quran, they believe in it 100%. And they want to implement it. Not only to believe, but they would like to implement it. And they are trying very hard to invite others to the same orientation and the same trend.
Like Helbawi, Yusuf Qaradawi is a big proponent of Dawah, a doctrine that mandates carrying out a variety of proselytizing activities, leading to the conversion of all non-Muslims to Islam. Here, Qaradawi tells an audience in Ohio about the group's goals to conquer the world, including the United States.
هذا ما نأمله إن شاء الله. سنفتح أوروبا وسنفتح أمريكا لا بالسيف ولكن بالدعوة.
To realize its vision in America, the Muslim Brotherhood gave rise to a complex interlinked network of Islamic organizations. Groups that present a seemingly legitimate public face to camouflage their hidden U.S. agenda, with civic-sounding names echoing those created in the heyday of the Civil Rights era, such as the Muslim Students Association, MSA, the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA, the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE. Collectively, these groups dominate representation of the Muslim American community, though not one of them incorporates the words Muslim Brotherhood in its name.
The Muslim Brotherhood is like the Russian doll. It's one organization inside another, inside another, inside another, and it's endless. You never have a complete sense of it unless you have the totality of the dolls. They are very, very clever if you are privy to their master plan.
In August 2004, a Virginia man and his wife were stopped on the Chesapeake Bay Bridge in Maryland for videotaping the bridge's suspension cables. Federal investigators knew Ismail el-Barassi had already been under scrutiny for his connections to the terrorist group and Muslim Brotherhood-spawned organization, Hamas.
Ultimately, that arrest led to a search warrant of Mr. el-Barassi's home, which revealed thousands of documents that absolutely blew the doors open on our understanding of the Muslim Brotherhood movement in the United States.
We had discovered to our amusement that he was actually kind of the archivist for the American branch of the Muslim Brotherhood.
The FBI found a cache of documents detailing the structure of the Muslim Brotherhood in the U.S., including this one, revealing the goals of the group in America. It was titled An Explanatory Memorandum on the General Strategic Goal for the Group in North America. It's dated May 22nd, 1991. The document named the organizations that could be enlisted to achieve the group's goals. 29 American Muslim groups were named either as Brotherhood organizations or Friends of the Brotherhood. The list included such prominent Muslim organizations as the Islamic Society of North America, ISNA, the Muslim Students Association, MSA, the Islamic Circle of North America, ICNA, and the Islamic Association for Palestine, IAP.
I thought of them as brotherhood groups, but I think it would have been somewhat difficult to prove. It wasn't until the explanatory memorandum came out that one could say, okay, well, I'm so right. Yeah, these groups are clearly enumerated.
The documents and the information on those documents that we reviewed was entirely consistent with our years of covert investigation.
The fascinating thing to me is that they describe in some detail their thinking. In the United States, you need organizations. Therefore, we set up organizations. Boom, 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 and there they are. And I think that sort of the understanding of the American culture and the American political structure demonstrated by that is rather extraordinary.
The organizations that were on that list represented a huge segment of the Islamic voice in North America at the time.
The memorandum not only named names, it candidly revealed just how the Brotherhood viewed the United States as a target for conquest.
The process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, which is what the Brotherhood uses to describe themselves, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it is eliminated and God's religion is made victorious over all other religions. That's pretty clear as to how they viewed their own objective. And this is, we're talking about the United States here.
It is very important. Media in the United States is very powerful. Okay? When they will see you have something, especially as a Muslim, if you have something to say, they will come running and take advantage of that.
We write the article itself, all we ask the reporter, write your name and it becomes yours. We're not after credit, just write it, put your name on it, and it becomes yours. This is the best way. When you write the article, you tell them what's the name.
الإخوان المسلمين في هذا يطبقوا استراتيجية جرامشي. جرامشي فيلسوف إيطالي لما كان في السجن فكر أن العمال الطبقة العاملة مش ممكن تأخذ السلطة السياسية اللي إذا أخذت السلطة الثقافية، يعني الثقافة بتاعها انتشرت بين الناس بالإعلام والتعليم في كل مكان، وقتها تدخل السلطة.
You have people who are being deceived by a campaign of deception, brazen lies that are presented as the truth and abetted by those in government or in the media that embrace it and then ensure that it's perceived as the truth.
Other documents found in Ismail el-Barassi's archive in 2004 provide more detail on the Brotherhood's tactics. This document reads, "No doubt America is the ideal location to train the necessary resources to support the movement worldwide with its need for brothers who are trained in different fields, administrative, media, political, and others."
We encourage Islamic centers to assign scholarship and give scholarship for 5 students every year. Imagine if we do nationwide. 5 years from now, you will have an army of lawyers. You will have an army of politicians, and an army of journalists, an army of teachers who go to schools, universities, can educate people about history of Islam and Islam.
You see so many organizations that's working on so many fronts to use our very system, the systems that they deplore, our democracy, our constitution, our rule of law, our tolerance. That's what they use to exploit their message. That's what they use to protect themselves and to create a facade around them that would allow them to internally operate and seek to achieve their true, often unstated objectives.
At a hotel just off a busy highway in Philadelphia, a secret meeting is called to order in October 1993. The FBI was watching and listening. During the meetings, the group used code in an effort to confuse anyone who might be listening. The code for Hamas was Sama, Hamas spelled backwards. Hamas, a Muslim Brotherhood organization, at this time was carrying out acts of violence in Israel, including kidnappings, drive-by shootings, and stabbing attacks. It became a U.S. designated terrorist group in 1995.
They even specifically discussed how do we keep ourselves from being defined as terrorists. They recognize when the doors are shut, they recognize that supporting Hamas is supporting terrorists. They know what the word means. And the concern was, if it is revealed what we truly support, then we will no longer be able to operate in this country the way in which we have been able to operate today.
For these men gathered in Philadelphia, the mission was just one campaign in a war.
واحنا بنحارب ضد احنا بنحارب عدونا بالطيب. عمرنا ما فكرنا نخدع عدونا. حرب خدع اخدع. موت اعمل حالك ماشي وانت ماشي هناك. سياسة الدستور تكملة الحرب. تستكمل الحرب خدع.
الحرب خدع. War is deception. Once you accept the fact that the system that you're living under at the present time is illegitimate, okay, then you're prepared to do anything illegal, underhanded, deceptive. The whole thing is illegitimate. You're in a war. So all bets are off.
The Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas advertising themselves as being peaceful organizations was nothing more than a pragmatic ruse to convince the world that they were mainstream and moderate. You need only scratch the surface to see that, in fact, they were not.
Within a year of the Philadelphia meeting, Omar Ahmad and Jihad would help to rebrand the Hamas Front, IAP, as the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE.
like jihad, like terrorism, and they redefine it for themselves to justify and rationalize the positions they're taking. So someone might say, do you support terrorism? They say no, because they don't believe that acts, for example, by Hamas against Israel is terrorism.
A typical response is to avoid condemning officially designated terrorist groups, Hamas or Hezbollah by name, hiding behind the broad term terrorism. When pressed by the reporter to condemn Hamas and Hezbollah, this CARE official repeatedly refused.
I'm telling you in a very clear fashion, CARE condemns terrorist acts, whoever commits them, wherever they commit them, whenever they commit them.
This is how the language is contorted. This is how the language is manipulated. This is how the agenda is hidden. It's hidden in the language.
The goal is peace, in one word, peace.
Islam is peace. Yes, Islam is peace. But peace is not necessarily freedom. Peace just means the absence of opposition.
To prevail everywhere and justice.
Who would ever have a problem with justice? Jihad is just to establish justice. So when you hear the word justice, you think fighting for someone's rights or trying to make sure that no one is mistreated or abused or whatever. That's not how Muslim fundamentalists define justice. Okay? Justice can only come from Allah, from God. We will never have justice until we have an Islamic state, because whoever doesn't rule by what Allah has revealed is an oppressor.
The goal is equality. The goal is respect of human rights. The goal is to live Muslims and non-Muslims together in one society.
أيها الإخوة الكرام، إن القضية الفلسطينية ليست صراعا على حدود ولا أرض فحسب، بل هي صراع حضاري، منهج شيطاني يتزعمه اليهود ومن يوالونهم، ومنهج رباني تحمله حماس والحركة الإسلامية جميعا والشعوب الإسلامية من ورائها.
These type of radical Muslims, they know their agenda is so sensitive. I mean, if anyone ever caught wind of what they're doing, you know, they'd be finished. So they have to hide it, they have to mask it. They hide it in plain sight. That's what they do, they hide it in plain sight.
Publicly, al-Moody established ties with powerful members of Congress and presidential candidates.
Al-Moody was someone who I think embodied really the ability for these organizations to penetrate a very deep level of society and a deep level of our government.
The Defense Department provided further access for al-Moody, putting him in charge of the military's Muslim chaplain program. The State Department even selected al-Moody to serve as a goodwill spokesman to the Muslim world. Documents reveal that the State Department spent at least $40,000 to send al-Moody on speaking tours in the Middle East from 1992 to 2001. Al-Moody discussed the state of Islam in America in countries such as Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, Kuwait, and the United Arab Emirates. In a 1999 visit to Amman, Jordan, on a goodwill mission, he gave a moderate speech at the U.S. Embassy, but later that afternoon, in an undercover interview, he revealed his support for violence. Back home a year later, al-Moody finally merged his public persona and private allegiances at a Washington, D.C. rally just steps from the White House. This video was taken after the mainstream media had left for the day.
I have been labeled by the media in New York to be a supporter of Hamas. Anybody support this Hamas here? Hear that, Bill Clinton? We are all supporters of Hamas. Allahu Akbar. I wish they added that I'm also a supporter of Hezbollah. Anybody supports Hezbollah here? Takbir!
Vocally supporting terror groups while shocking is not illegal. On the other hand, in January of 2001, Al-Amoudi traveled with several other members of the American Muslim Brotherhood to Beirut to meet with leaders of Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, and Al-Qaeda. The goal of the meeting was to unite the terror groups to wage jihad against Israel and the U.S. to secure Muslim control of Jerusalem. Beyond all of his other associations, Al-Amoudi was also close with the country of Libya, at the time designated a state sponsor of terrorism.
He was a person who we were monitoring in the same way that we monitor other people who are believed to be agents of foreign powers.
In March 2003, Libyan President Muammar al-Gaddafi felt he was publicly insulted by Saudi Crown Prince Abdullah and recruited Al-Amoudi to work on an assassination plot against the Crown Prince. During a stopover in London in September 2003, British custom officials found $340,000 in cash in a briefcase with Al-Amoudi. U.S. officials later charged him with prohibited transactions with Libya, lying on immigration forms, and supporting terrorism. This Treasury document states Al-Amoudi had been an al-Qaeda fundraiser for years, while he was still meeting with countries on behalf of the U.S. He received a sentence of 23 years for his crimes. He declined to be interviewed for this program. However, in a written response, he made this startling admission from prison. I am, I hope, still a member of the Muslim Brotherhood organization in the USA. Abdurrahman al-Amoudi's political efforts in America would become eclipsed by those of another Muslim Brotherhood front group. Immediately after the events of September 11, 2001, a coalition that included the Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, and other Muslim Brotherhood front groups condemned the attacks. On September 16th, CARE took out a full-page ad in the Washington Post denouncing the attacks. Within hours, CARE's Jihad Awad was prominently positioned next to President Bush.
The face of terror is not the true faith of Islam. That's not what Islam is all about. Islam is peace.
How did CARE get this close to power? Since its inception in 1994, CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, established more than 30 chapters across the country. And since 9/11, CARE has achieved nationwide acceptance, from the inauguration of CARE Days in Houston and Tampa, to the support of mayors, governors, congressmen, and senators. After 9/11, CARE was also embraced by some within the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. Joint sessions with CARE were held routinely throughout the country.
I also am on the mailing list for my BlackBerry for CARE. Now, Mr. Hooper, I don't know what he does all day, but I know I get BlackBerries must be 10 emails a day from CARE. And if I am not aware of what's going on in here, I would be at a loss.
My record is clear. CARE is not a terrorist-supporting organization. That is my experience. That is my interaction. And if you want to promote that, you're on your own. That's your life.
While ingratiating itself with law enforcement, CARE simultaneously discouraged other Muslims from cooperating with authorities. In late 2008, in the course of the largest terrorism financing trial in U.S. history, CARE was officially described as a front group for Hamas by an FBI agent on the witness stand. Prosecutors named CARE as an unindicted co-conspirator in the trial. With mounting scrutiny, the FBI officially cut its ties to CARE, explaining its decision in letters to inquiring congressmen. Until we can resolve whether there continues to be a connection between CARE or its executives and Hamas, the FBI does not view CARE as an appropriate liaison partner. CARE launched an all-out verbal assault on its former partner as a form of damage control, propagating incendiary conspiracy theories.
But actually the FBI, over the last 8 years, have been engaging in actually paying informants as instigators
The FBI, by using informants acting as agent provocateurs, has recruited more so-called extremist Muslims than Al-Qaeda themselves.
This is a conscious strategy. It's to scream injustice, scream particular things so that people will never dare to ever question certain things. Being a bully helps. No one wants to deal with the bullies, so everyone says, let's just give them what they want. Let's, in a way, appease them so that they're not going to, keep banging, and they're just, let's just get them off our back.
The Muslim Brotherhood affiliated groups have been masterful in getting government officials to adopt their censorship campaign, such as refusing to even utter the term radical Islam.
In the case of all three attempts in the last year, the terrorist attempts, one of which was successful, those individuals have had ties to radical Islam. Do you feel that these individuals might have been incited to take the actions that they did because of radical Islam?
Because of?
Radical Islam.
There are a variety of reasons why I think people have taken these actions. It's hard. One, I think you have to look at each individual case. I mean, we're in the process now of talking to Mr. Shahzad to try to understand what it is that drove him to take the action.
But radical Islam could have been one of the reasons?
There are a variety of reasons why people...
But was radical Islam one of them?
There are a variety of reasons why people do these things. Some of them are potentially religious.
Okay, but all I'm asking is if you think among those variety of reasons, radical Islam might have been one of the reasons that the individuals took the steps that they did.
You see, say radical Islam, I mean, I think those people who espouse a version of Islam that is not...
Are you uncomfortable attributing any of their actions to radical Islam? It sounds like...
No, I don't want to say anything negative about a religion that is not...
I'm not talking about religion.
I'm
talking about radical Islam. I'm not talking about the general religion.
Right, and I'm saying that a person like Anwar al-Awlaki, for instance, who has a version of Islam that is not consistent with the teachings of it, and who espouses a radical version.
Could radical Islam have motivated these individuals to take the steps that they did?
I certainly think that it's possible that people who espouse a radical version of Islam have had an ability to have an impact on people like Mr. Shahzad.
Okay, and could it have been the case in one of these three instances?
Could that have been the case?
Yeah, could one of these three individuals have been incited by radical Islam? Apparently you feel that they could have been.
Well, I think potentially incited by people who have a Islam that is inconsistent.
It's hard to get an answer yes or no, but let me go on to my next question.
Okay, so as you can see, we can't even come to terms with if it's radical Islam or if it's Islam or what it is. And quite frankly, when I went to Washington, D.C. last year, I asked that very question, with several hundred other people in the room, and asked Brigitte, I said, why are we calling it radical Islam when it's truly Islam if you study it? And she said, because the country is not even ready, not even close to being ready for that conversation. So that's why they call it radical Islam. As you can see, the Attorney General can't even call it radical. So that's how far along we are, or far away we are from solving this problem. Okay, so in the film they talked about the documents that were found. One of the documents was called the Explanatory Memorandum. And I have business cards in the back that I would hope everybody would take with 6 or 7 of the main websites that you can go to research all of this. And one of the sites one of the websites listed on the card says investigativeproject.org, and then it says documents. And when you click on that link, or you type that into your browser and you open that up, it will take you to the actual document, or one of the documents that was found. It starts in Arabic. You've got to go through 17 pages of it, scroll down and find the next 17. And you can read it in their own words on how they're going to do this. It's a gradual civilizational jihad is what they're performing. Now, so the Holy Land Foundation trial happened. Okay, there were 130 some people put away for funneling $11 million to Hamas. But there were 254 other people listed as either organizations or people listed as unindicted co-conspirators. That means that the government has the goods on these people. There was supposed to be a second part of the trial, and that second part of the trial has not been allowed to happen. There are 800 cases of evidence sitting in the Justice Department that Holder will not allow to be released, will not even be allowed to show congressmen and calling for this to be, for this trial to resume. People let the documents out so they can review it. And so the trial's not allowed to happen. These people are not only willing to, or have the ability to still flourish and operate in our society through their organizations, but many of them have found their way of working in our government. Okay. Part of the plan is to get involved in our government, involved in political parties. And now we have Congressman Keith Ellison, who is a big defender of the Council of American Islamic Relations. If you ever see him on TV, that's all, he's always defending them. He was the first congressman to swear in on a Quran. We have Congressman Andre Carson in Indiana, who has made several statements to the effect that our schools should be modified to become madrasas in this country. We have CIA Director Brennan.
Barack Obama's nominee for the post of CIA Director, John Brennan, has a long history of associations with radical Islamists, notably the Muslim Brotherhood. In February of 2010, Brennan spoke at an Islamic Society of North America-sponsored event, coddling Muslims as Barack Obama has often done.
I came to see Islam, not how it is often misrepresented, but for what it is, how it is practiced every day by well over 1 billion Muslims worldwide. A faith of peace and tolerance and great diversity.
Islamic Society of North America, or ISNA, was an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2008 Holy Land Foundation trial, found to be funneling millions of dollars to the Muslim Brotherhood terrorist group Hamas. Brennan also has deep ties to another Muslim Brotherhood front group, Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, also an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation case. CARE has had literally hundreds of secret meetings with the Obama administration, no doubt at Brennan's bequest. In October of 2011, the group Muslim Advocates wrote a letter signed by 57 Muslim organizations, whose main signatories were CARE and ISNA, demanding the Obama administration remove quote-unquote bigoted language found in FBI training materials, terms like jihad and Islamist, the rationale being that these terms offended Muslims.
It is important to note that out of concern for the FBI's outreach program and the State Department and the White House for reaching out and bringing in people who courts have said have supported terrorism, and these people are being brought in the military, we've said brought inside the wire, in this case brought inside the State Department, brought inside the White House on a regular basis, brought inside the Justice Department. They've gotten the FBI to actually go through and cull material that includes words like jihad, words like Islamist. And in fact, and I really do wish, Mr. Speaker, that our director of the FBI would be as concerned about this law as he is about laws that don't exist, but his concern about offending people who have been supporting terrorism that has been killing innocent people around the world.
Brennan responded to the letter personally and not only purged FBI training materials, but implemented a mandatory retraining program for FBI agents, U.S. Army officers, and all federal, state, and local law enforcement who have been subjected to quote-unquote bias training. Those who refused to toe the politically correct line, like war hero and Army trainer Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Dooley, were summarily blacklisted. Instead of
Okay, so that's the story with John Brennan, our CIA director. These 6 individuals are now main advisors to the Obama administration. There's 43 members of the Muslim Brotherhood working in his administration. These 6 are key advisors. The gentleman on the left, second left, Muhammad Ali Biari, he was actually a Republican delegate for John McCain in the state of Texas. So this is not just, this isn't about politics. This is about a problem that's infected both parties. Mohammed Majid is the leader of ISNA, the Islamic Society of North America. He will be in Beechwood on April 23rd, having an interfaith dialogue at the Maltz Museum. Let's back up. Muhammad Ali Biari just got promoted as a senior fellow at the Department of Homeland Security. So, the DHS, that's the fox guarding the henhouse. They have changed the guidelines in 2010, and one of the particular guidelines that they did change, they're teaching the DHS and law enforcement not to use moderate Muslims. And the moderate Muslim is one that is defined as adhering to Sharia law. So they don't want to use moderate Muslims as trainers. This gets real confusing. These guidelines have now gone out to all the sheriffs, all law enforcement throughout the country, state, feds, local, what have you. And I can tell you firsthand an experience that a woman that lives in Stowe came to me and talked to me about, and I presented it to our national organization in Washington, told them about it, and that is happening everywhere in the country. Her husband, who follows this stuff, back in 2010, sent this booklet that you can get from the American Center of Law and Justice that talks about Sharia law and the threat to the Constitution, and it lays it out perfectly on how it's incompatible, cannot happen. He sends this out to every sheriff in the state of Ohio. One sheriff in Lima, Ohio, takes it upon himself. Now Lima's out, south of Toledo, out near Indiana, and this gentleman lives in Stowe. The sheriff contacts the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security makes the person in Stowe a person of interest. And designated him as, I saw the paperwork, designated as person of interest, anti-government. That's not what he's doing. He's alerting to the sheriffs about Sharia law. So it got to the point where they tried to talk about this in Stowe, and it got squelched. The mayor submitted or gave them a $22,000 cash settlement and apologized to them. They showed me the letter, they showed me the canceled check, the whole shot. And when I did present this to Washington, they told me that this is happening everywhere in the country. Okay, one of the biggest things that they did, besides changing the guidelines in the DHS, in that short video that I just showed, talked about something called the purge, where hundreds of documents were purged from our training manuals. That's everywhere, military, FBI, DHS, and they fired all the trainers. So they got rid of all the documents. You cannot say these words like jihad, Islamist. Now imagine that, it's like saying you couldn't say communist or communism. And it also happened in 6 weeks. So one thing we figured out, the federal government doesn't do anything efficiently in 6 weeks. The trainers were fired. So all these old trainers, those guys you've seen on the video, guys like them, that's who are running these organizations that I've had listed on my business card that work with Act for America, that are trying to tell the truth to the public. Okay. Fort Hood shooting, the first one, not the one that happened a few days ago. Major Nadal Hassan had business cards with the letters SOAN, meaning Soldier of Allah. He shot up 31 people, 32 people, killed 13 of them. He was yelling Allahu Akbar as he did it. And we won't call this to this day a terrorist attack because of this proper political correctness language nonsense. He was outraged by our refusal to accept the law of Allah, Sharia, to be the supreme law of the land. And the administration, like I said, continues to classify this as workplace violence. After the shootings, then Honorable General George Casey said that as bad as the deaths of the 13 soldiers were, it would be an even greater tragedy if our diversity becomes a casualty. He said this with George Stephanopoulos on ABC News. So, by the way, it's a travesty. You'll see the, I can't remember the guy's name. He'll be on Fox if you're watching Fox from time to time talking about this. They can't get their benefits, the survivors, okay? And they should have got a Purple Heart. They're not getting that. And there's a lot, there's just, so that's just a total insult to those survivors. Okay, CARE and the IRS. Back in 2012, prior to the last election, they got immediate approval. Tea Party groups, Christian groups are getting targeted by the IRS. They can't get their IRS tax deferred status or whatever for the 501c3s. CARE gets it after improper filing for years in a matter of time. And the person who did this was, who approved it was Lois Lerner. We now have Al Jazeera English. Al Jazeera is funded by the government of Qatar. They are the financial backing of the Muslim Brotherhood. It's specified in their plan. Let's get a TV station. The mosques. We had 800 mosques in the year 2000. We are approaching 2,200 now. They're building mosques everywhere. And you would say, well, why? Idaho? Really? South Dakota? They're under construction. In fact, I just saw an article, I didn't have the time to incorporate it into this PowerPoint, where a church in Syracuse just sold, the Catholic diocese just sold it, Muslims bought it, are ripping down the crucifixes, or the crosses on top, and making it a mosque. Okay, in the grade schools. This is where it's truly a danger. This plan called C-Scope is very similar to Common Core. This was exposed in the state of Texas. In fact, Glenn Beck exposed this. Parents came to him, and he got it out there. He got involved with state legislators, and they got rid of it. But it continues to keep coming back, this curriculum. Not only are they supposed to be learning about the history of Islam, but now they've taken it a step further, and they're proselytizing. They're teaching the 5 pillars. They're having, this got really blatant, dressing up, taking their names. This has been going on for quite some time. I'm not going to talk about this next story in Homestead Falls because we don't have the time to get into it further, but this stuff is happening locally as well. Here's another short video.
Hello, the Back to Hannity World History textbook in the Florida public school system is raising serious concerns over its alleged Islamic bias. Now, the textbook has been used in 9th grade advanced placement classes in Brevard County schools for the past 3 years. It is now under review by the school board. Let's take a look inside this book. Now, first, as you can see on the screen, the book has a major chapter on Islam titled Muslim Civilizations. By the way, keep in mind, it has 0 chapters on Christianity or Judaism. The chapter goes on to teach about the Prophet Muhammad and how he became God's messenger. Even describes Jihad as a, quote, holy war to defend Islam. Here now with the book in hand and more details on the controversy, Fox News Radio's Todd Starnes.
This is Sean. 36 pages in this textbook dedicated to Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. Not one chapter about Christianity, not one positive mention about Jesus. They say that some people believe he may be the Savior, but they declare definitively that Muhammad is God's messenger. Public school.
Let's talk about it. You said they're defining Jihad, interpreting as a holy war to defend Islam against the victims.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, I mean, through the entire chapter, Sean, I mean, Islam is defended. They talk about how wonderful Islam is to women. I mean, you think that they were having Victoria's Secret stores over there. I mean, by reading this, women who can't drive or go to school, that's right, or women who are stoned, who've been brutally assaulted and murdered. None of that is mentioned here in this book.
Or the women under Sharia that need 4 male eyewitnesses to prove rape.
Look, it goes so far as to even redefine history, reconstruct history. They talk about the Crusades. Whenever the Christians do something, they call it a massacre. But whenever the Muslims do something, they call it an occupation.
Yeah, well, big difference. Why, if it's a world history book, and they're going to deal with the sensitive topic of religions, why not comparative religions?
It's a great question, and unfortunately, the publisher of this book is not giving us the answer to that question. I called Pearson publishers. They wouldn't talk to us. They gave us a prepared statement. They're defending this. They say it's fair and balanced. But look, school board members are telling me in Brevard County that it's not fair and balanced. They've had a chance to read this, and they have big problems with it. But this is bigger than just Brevard County. Sean, when I did my original story, we started getting emails from all over the country, parents saying they have similar issues, and we understand that a study's been done by the Citizens for National Security, and they tell me that at least 80 textbooks that are in use right now are filled with Muslim bias. This is happening all across the country.
Is it just bias, or is it also a whitewashed, politically correct version? For example, the definition of jihad is wrong.
Exactly. I mean, it's not only whitewashing history, it's also distorting what jihad and what other definitions like that really are. And the reason why is this. There is an organization called the Institute on Religious and Civic Values. They have an advisor. They were an academic advisor to this book. Now, you might say that seems like a fairly normal organization.
Innocuous.
They changed their name. They used to be known as the Council on Islamic Education.
Pretty amazing. Where's the ACLU? We're liberals that don't want any religion or the mention of Jesus or prayer in schools.
They accuse the crickets. Look, you put baby Jesus in the school play, the ACLU is filing a lawsuit. You have teachers saying grace as they did it to one school in the Florida Panhandle. They're threatened with jail. But they haven't issued one statement about 36 pages of Islamic doctrine, Bible verses from the Quran in here. No Bible verses, but the Quran is in this public school textbook.
Do you think this outcry that started, do you think it'll end in this being removed?
That could be. Just a few moments ago, a school board member called me from Brevard County. She's introducing this to the entire board. She has grave concerns about what she read in here. And we could see this book revised, rewritten, or possibly removed from the school system.
All right, Todd, great investigative work as usual. Todd Starnes, Fox News Radio, and
Council on Islamic Education, okay? Another one of those organizations belonging to the Muslim Brotherhood. At our universities, 75,000 student visas last year. 15,000 of these students never made it to class. Where are they? NOCMES stands for the Northeast Ohio Consortium of Middle Eastern Studies. These are departments, Middle Eastern Studies departments, set up at our local universities, Case, Spalding, Wallace, John Carroll, Kent, Oberlin, and Cleveland State. They're getting money from the Middle East, whether it be the government of Qatar or the Saudis, and they're supporting them with petrodollars, basically, and teaching, proselytizing, all about Islam. And this is happening in our major universities as well. Ivy League, Duke, Stanford, California schools, Cal Irvine, the rest of those out there. There's so much anti-Semitism going on, it's incredible. Right here, this is their website, or comes from this web, or part of the website from NOCMES, Northeast Ohio Consortium of Middle Eastern Studies. And here's one of their community partners, an unindicted co-conspirator in the largest terrorism financing trial. Okay. Libraries. Our tax dollars are supporting a federal program to have Islamic textbooks or history books, everything Islamic culture throughout the country. Big, big program. I can't remember how many millions of dollars we're spending on this. In our prisons, another big problem. Muslim chaplains or imams are converting many prisoners. They're an easy mark. These are people that have a chip on their shoulder for one reason or another with our society, and they're converting them to Islam. The problem is, not only is that a problem, but All the chaplains are certified by the Islamic Society of North America. Our military, Muslim Brotherhood instructors were teaching this past summer at the U.S. Naval Academy, and they teach at the recruiting at the Lackland Air Force Base for our Air Force cadets. There's a picture right there, mandatory training. Syria. Our enemies are fighting our enemies, Assad, Iran, and Hezbollah on one side, Syrian rebels, Al-Qaeda, Muslim Brotherhood on the other. Our position is not to get dragged into this. Now, in terms of this conference, I didn't bring this up yesterday, Pastor, and I'm not an expert at any stretch of the imagination with the Bible, and you guys can answer this, but my reading, are we living through Psalm 83 in Syria?
Yeah, it has an application there.
This is actually absolutely criminal. When they talk about media strategy, media supremacy in that video, this is what they mean. They're in the media. They're not telling the public the truth. Okay? We didn't find out about Russia. We're not finding out that this is happening. Christians are being slaughtered all over Africa, Syria, Egypt. Muslim Brotherhood was in power at the behest of our government a few years back. Mohammed Morsi was the leader. Christians, non-Muslims were persecuted, then the military took over, and even Muslims themselves got rid of them because he was too strict with to try to change their whole constitution and everything else. Benghazi, of course we could be here for a week talking about this. There's so many problems with this, okay? But the biggest thing, the one thing you should remember is that we were not told the truth about this. Our organization, Act for America, has been working with Congressman Frank Wolf in trying to get House Resolution 36 passed, which would call for a select committee. That means everybody gets subpoenaed, can be called in, and that's the only way to really get to the bottom of it. We have 187 Congress people that have co-sponsored this, okay? The guy holding this up is a Republican, John Boehner. I'm not even going to make a comment, but she's another one of the people that lied. And what difference does it make? Are you kidding me? We lost 4 people, 4 Americans. He said the future must not belong to those who slander the Prophet of Islam. That video that they're trying to pin this on, that is at least the one common thing that everybody's come out with. They know it's a lie, it had nothing to do with it. Maybe 500 people saw that video. That had nothing to do with it. It's much bigger than that. It goes to this. United Nations Resolution 1618. It started in 2005. They had a 10-year plan to get all defamation, all criticism of Islam stopped in the world. They have been after this forever. Our government finally capitulated and started working with them on this in 2011. Hillary is very instrumental in this when she was in the State Department, and called UN 1618, it's called the Istanbul process because it started in Istanbul, and trying to stop the defamation of religion. So in other words, everything we would be doing right now would be illegal. I haven't invoked Muhammad one time. I haven't criticized the religion one time. I'm talking about Sharia. I'm telling you about a trial that happened. I'm pointing out references to organizations that are set up in this country to hurt us, to take away our freedoms. That would all be illegal. We wouldn't be able to discuss it. The Cairo Declaration in 1990, the Islamic world's position on human rights was made clear in 1990 when representatives of Muslim nations met in Cairo as the OIC and voiced their opposition to the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights. In place of the UN Declaration, the OIC issued the Cairo Declaration, which asserted that the only human rights Muslims recognize are those permitted under Islamic Sharia. So here's what we're up against. The OIC, political correctness, Al-Qaeda, and physical jihad, and the Muslim Brotherhood. One thing that we're doing to combat this, besides educating the public, is to get state laws passed, called American Laws for American Courts. Over in the UK, there are 85 Sharia courts operating simultaneously with their own court system. And that was moved as an appeasement move to the immigration of Muslims and to let them settle their own matters. Okay, that's fine. UK can do whatever they want. They're having problems as a result of it, but this has been done in our country. There's been 138 cases at the appellate level where our judges, either being lazy or being activists, have decided to use Sharia law to settle disputes. This sets a horrible precedence. We have 8 states have this law now, called American Laws for American Courts. We just had this House Bill 513 introduced Friday, 2 days ago, by Matt Lynch, who's from out Bainbridge, who's running for against Dave Joyce.
14 He's on the table in the back.
Yeah, so I would appreciate if you took that information. There's 8 co-sponsors in addition to Matt being on there, and a simple phone call to them would be great as a starting point, just to thank them for taking this up, that you realize the problem, why we need this, okay? Is it a silver bullet in this problem? Not at all, not at all. What it does is, hopefully, we'll get it passed in a year or whatever it takes to get this become the 9th state. There are several other states working on it, but it opens the door for me and for other organizations in trying to tell people, what are we up against? Because they'll say, well, why do we even need this law? And I would say, well, let me tell you why. Okay, the one way it's being stopped, besides guys like him, but this is really important. Uninformed pastors, rabbis, or priests are being used by imams. And they're being told that if you support this law, you are going to wreck all of our bridge building efforts that we've gone through, all the bridge building programs. When it couldn't be further than the truth. A priest, a pastor, a rabbi should turn around and say to the imam, if you were truly here to assimilate into our country and don't want any form of Sharia law, want to follow the Constitution, it's really simple. Support this law, and you would be able to speak volumes that would show your true intentions. So it's just a matter of defining the framing the argument. So that's why it means we need to be educated. Okay, so what can you do? I'm asking you to join Act for America. I'm asking you to take my cards, any of the information on the table, study up on this. Like every website, they have a place where you can donate money. If you choose to do that, that's fine. I'm not asking you to do that. I don't get paid by them. I'm volunteering my time. But I'm asking you to put this in your radar. Get comfortable with this to the point that you don't mind sharing this information with people. Send an email, share it through Facebook. When it comes time, if you're getting my emails, I will be able to instruct you further on how to push our state legislators on ALAC and to get this passed. You go to actforamerica.org, that information's on the business card, so is my email, and so you would actually get 2 emails, a daily email from the national organization and a weekly email from me to let you know what's happening in the greater Cleveland area. Learn and share the information with your friends. Here's the bottom line, unless we make this common knowledge that all this is afoot, you're only getting partial information from Fox News, you're not getting anything from CNN, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, Wade Miller. You're not getting the truth. So it's up to all of us, really. Thank you very much.
These papers there with the numbers, folks, you really need to call these people. You really do. We're a lot farther along with this than people realize. All right, we're going to take a break here for about 10 minutes to about 10 after. And on the table in the back, there's a number of DVDs and videos. Now, Common Core is a product of CARE. It came right out of CARE. You need to have these. These are in the back. We're giving them out $5. If you can't afford $5, and you'll show it someplace, we'll give it to you free. But you really need it. This is in the back, $5. Now, many of you are asking for our songs, the songs you hear on the radio, and you can save us all some shipping costs if you buy them here at a special price today on our on these CDs with they have about 20 songs on them.